The Florida Panthers might not be playing any hockey games until February 16th, but there's one Florida Panthers player that is on their way back to returning to the ice. We're going to discuss that more on today's episode of the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast.
Your Locked On Panthers, your daily podcast on the Florida Panthers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
And welcome into this Thursday, February 3rd edition of the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, where it's your team every day. Let me introduce myself. My name is Armando. I'm from PantherParkway.com. You can follow me on Twitter at MondoMan12. Follow the show account on Twitter at LO_FLA Panthers. You can also follow the national show Locked On NHL and the Crosscheck NHL show with Andrew Berkshire and Mary Clark. They'll be covering all the regular season activities around the National Hockey League. So, like I said in the beginning, the Florida Panthers aren't playing until February 16th, a nationally televised game against the Carolina Hurricanes, and a familiar face to the Florida Panthers is one step closer to returning to the lineup. But we're actually going to wait for that in the second segment of the show. But I want to get this right out of the way. And one thing that was circling around NHL circles yesterday was a town hall meeting between the owner of the Chicago Blackhawks, owner Rocky Wirtz, and with meeting with the Chicago media, a town hall to discuss the search for their new GM and the direction that the team is going. And I did not get to see the actual video until later on into the night last night. And I was looking at tweets about the reaction from Mark Lazerus of The Athletic, who does a great job covering the Chicago Blackhawks. Why am I talking about this? Because once again, the Florida Panthers are kind of involved with the Kyle Beach situation that happened in Chicago. And of course, it relates with the whole resignation of Joel Quenneville and everything. And Rocky Wirtz said how we're not going to talk about Kyle Beach. We are moving on from the situation in 2010. He said that the people who were employed by the franchise are no longer here. And I just saw Mark Lazerus' tweet that's saying wrong answer about the accountability that hasn't been from the owner. Of course, he didn't know any of this happened. At least from what the reports are, we don't know what he knows and what he doesn't. But the lack of accountability on the franchise and avoiding the topic that is still a very big deal in not only this sport, but many sports, from the professional level all the way to bantam hockey and Pop Warner football and you name it, and Little League baseball. And the fact that he's avoiding it and just all it takes is just saying, hey, we're trying to put people in position to make sure this doesn't happen again. And I'm talk about trying to be more hands-on about what's going on with this situation, and maybe having more of an open door policy when it comes to issues. But it just goes to show that they haven't learned from their mistakes, and avoiding a topic like this is what's going to make this possibly happen again. I don't wish it on anyone, but brushing it off and just avoiding it because you don't want the attention on you, it brought even more attention to the situation. Instead and answer the question, tell what you're going to do to prevent this from happening. And now, right before I started hitting the record button, I was looking at Puck Empire on Instagram, which is a must follow page on Instagram. And now there is a third person now who is suing the Chicago Blackhawks for what happened with Bradley Aldrich. It's a student from Miami University. I'm gonna pull up the post right here from Puck Empire, and it was from what I read right before recording, it was a former student from Miami University, as in Miami of Ohio, not University of Miami in Coral Gables, talking about how he's one of three potential plaintiffs weighing in lawsuits against the Blackhawks. And I'm gonna read. I'm gonna read the post, uh, and how he Bradley Aldrich groomed him by using Stanley Cup ring, Olympic silver medal, and other hockey memorabilia. During a Zoom call interview with TSN last week, the former student said that he met Aldrich in the fall of 2011 when both worked in the NCAA's school men's hockey team. The former student is now in his 30s and working in the hockey industry. He asked for anonymity. TSN has a policy to not name sexual assault survivors without their permission and will refer him in reporting as John Doe 3. John Doe 3 is among three potential plaintiffs who are weighing lawsuits against the Blackhawks. All three are represented by Christopher Kortze, a lawyer with the Chicago law firm Hurley, McKenna, and Mertz. So this is a bad situation, and the fact that once again the Chicago Blackhawks just let him go after that 2010 Stanley Cup final run instead of putting in a investigation within their own organization. And their wrongdoing in this caused, of course, multiple things to happen after the fact with the situation that happened with the high schooler in Michigan and now Miami of Ohio as well. And the fact that Rocky Wirtz decides not to want to talk about it and say that we're not going to talk about Kyle Beach, wrong answer, man. That's just the absolute wrong answer to put out. And it just shows that, once again, not learning anything, and that when you are up top in that high of a position and we can't see the events happening and we are in a position of power, it just though they just want to focus more on their bottom line instead of people, and it's just very disgraceful that Wirtz is stooped down to that level for the Chicago Blackhawks. And I hope that I hope that some of the owners around the National Hockey League, including the Florida Panthers, don't go down to that level and actually try to empathize more on anyone who goes through this, because nobody deserves what Kyle Beach and John Doe 2 and John Doe 3 went through, because John Doe 2 was never he never came out to publicly say who they were, and now we have more of this situation, now a John Doe 3. So this is not pretty for the Chicago Blackhawks and the NHL. Though the resignation of Joel Quenneville for the Florida Panthers created an opportunity for Andrew Burnett. Andrew Burnett will be heading to the All-Star game along with Jonathan Huberdeau to coach the Atlantic Division. And we are going to talk about that more in the next segment here on Locked On Panthers. But first, I want to tell you all about BetOnline. And BetOnline has you covered this season for more props, odds, and lines than ever before as football continues its march through the playoffs, right to the big game in a couple weeks. BetOnline.net remains the best spot for all your sports scores, podcasts, and news this season. And it's not just football. BetOnline has up-to-the-minute info on pro and college hoops, NHL, boxing, UFC, along with live, real-time updates of current games. Don't wait to take advantage of all the new amazing offers available for the 2022 season. BetOnline, where the game starts. Continuing on this conversation here related to the Florida Panthers, right before we talk about Andrew Burnett and the situation that he is currently in for the Panthers, some positive news for the Panthers before we get to the other stuff is that Noel Acciari is back for the Panthers in a conditioning stint for the Charlotte Checkers. And it's not surprising that the Florida Panthers did take this opportunity while there wasn't any game action on the NHL side to put him on a conditioning stint. And he played on the second line on the right wing for the Charlotte Checkers in their 5-1 loss against the Rochester Americans. And he had 2 shots on goal, a plus minus of -1 in their loss. And trying to look at the time on ice, but the AHL.com does not provide the time on ice. I've been trying to look for it to see how many minutes he played. So I was not able to see how many minutes he played, but that's what I'm seeing on the box score. Didn't watch the actual game, but didn't get an opportunity to see how much time on ice. But an encouraging sign that Noel Acciari is one step closer to being back in the lineup for the Florida Panthers when they do resume play on February 16th and getting in some game action, because the last time Noel Acciari played a hockey game was October 5th in that preseason game against the Tampa Bay Lightning in Orlando. Was able to go there in person. And let's not forget, this was the preseason game when there was 96 total penalty infraction minutes between both teams, and they were getting just everything out of their system from their previous playoff series last season. So that unfortunately caused an injury for Noel Acciari, who's been out for now 4 months now. So now we talked about the embarrassment of riches for this Florida Panthers team, and it's only going to continue once Noel Acciari comes back. A player who's mostly been on the fourth line playing center, and he could also play wing as well. So that's going to create more opportunities for and more difficult decisions for Andrew Brunette and the coaching staff for the Florida Panthers once Acciari does come back. And he's one of those hard-hitting defensive forwards too, as well. And you got 2 big ones in Mason Marchment and Noel Acciari now in the lineup. And of course, the big body defenseman of Radko Gudas putting it there. So a lot of talk has been a little bit of the lack of physicality for the Florida Panthers. But they're bringing one guy in that's definitely going to bring that to the table for the Florida Panthers. And as far as the offensive side of things, we don't know what we're going to see out of him. Sometimes he scores none. Sometimes he scores a hat trick. Sometimes that happens. That's kind of the story of Noel Acciari during his time with the Panthers. So really excited to bring Cookie back into the lineup. But going to Andrew Brunette and Bill Zito, they had a busy day yesterday. Bill Zito talked with multiple outlets. He talked with Ray and Dregs on the Ray and Dregs podcast, was able to listen to that show. Thanks to Nick Fairbanks of PantherParkway.com for sending me that link for the listen. Bill Zito also spoke with Pierre LeBrun of The Athletic, and he also got an opportunity to speak with George Richards of Florida Hockey Now. Andrew Brunette also spoke with George Richards of Florida Hockey Now yesterday about the situation at hand. Let's go to Andrew Brunette first before we get to Zito. And he talked about how, without spoiling the article, the whole thing, and I challenge you guys to subscribe to it and read it. He talked about how it was mostly Joel Quenneville's team, how he looked up to him, and now it's at a point where now this is his team, and he's now putting his staple onto the team. And now Andrew Brunette has had a few months under his belt here, and now we're starting to see kind of the players like get to know who he is and talk about how when he was an assistant, that now that he had more of a one-on-one time with players versus when you're the head coach, you're more like the CEO and talking about and looking at more of the whole operation as a whole. So that's pretty much what I got from Andrew Brunette, and how for him, looking up to a mentor like Joel Quenneville and now having to take over for it was a really hard situation for Andrew Brunette to be in. But the fact that he has this rich of talent here for the Florida Panthers, and along with putting in his staple, it's resulted in wins, and definitely Andrew Brunette deserves a lot of credit now that he's going to his first All-Star game as a coach. He never got to go as a player, even though he played over 1,100 games in the NHL. So once again, go and read that article by George Richards of Florida Hockey Now to read a more in-depth about Andrew Burnett and talking about the situation that he was put in, because there's a lot of great detail there. But Bill Zito spoke to multiple outlets yesterday, and of course, with this being the All-Star break coming up for the NHL and the Florida Panthers, he was able to speak more about how the and this is what Zito said in a quote to Pierre LeBrun that Steve Goldstein happened to share. And this is the quote. In my mind, the cup is going to go to the best team, not the best collection of talent. So just because the competition acquires another talented piece, does that make their team better? Obviously, they think so. That's their business. But we want to make moves that allow our team, each piece, to maximize his value and contribute to the team for the collective to be as strong and valuable as it can be. Close quote. So that in itself tells me that Bill Zito isn't going to be desperate for a move. That's what that tells me. Even though as great of an acquisition of Jacob Chikrin would be for this team, I don't know if Bill Zito is willing to sell the whole farm for Jacob Chikrin. Even though if you bring him in, it'll be for multiple years, and the cap hit is very team friendly for the Florida Panthers. But if you want to get a quick fix for this year and a rental, there's Ben Sherratt of the Montreal Canadiens, and there is John Klingberg of the Dallas Stars as well. But John Klingberg himself is looking for a long-term deal. So are you going to give up more and then try to extend him, or give up more and give up less and let him walk? But are the Dallas, if you're going to give him less and let him walk, is Dallas going to take that offer from the Florida Panthers? So that is things that Bill Zito needs to think about too before pulling the trigger on a trade for a middle line defenseman for the Florida Panthers right before the trade deadline. And we're just a month and a half away from it. So those are three names that would make sense for the Panthers. And two of them are expiring deals. One of them has great term and young piece in Jacob Chikrin and many teams are in on Chick. So it would be great to see the Boca Raton native come back home and play for the Panthers. And if you make that move, once again, like I said in the episode with John Chick, that you worry about the other stuff later when it comes to kicking the can down the road as far as continuing to create cap space for this team. And with Noel Acciari coming back, that's going to take up a whole a small portion of your cap too. So you're going to have to move a few things here and there, because I believe the Panthers at this moment in time they're really close to the cap ceiling. So they're going to have to move somebody down to make space for Noel Acciari. So to create room for Jacob Chikrin, Noel Acciari is making 1.6. So if they were to make another move for Jacob Chikrin as well, what's going to be the long-term cost versus if Sherratt and Klingberg are in, they're expiring, so you get to reset your cap for next year in order to improve the team. And this is also where drafting and developing really matter for the Florida Panthers when bringing up certain players up in the system for the Cats. And this is where next year Matt Kierstead is going to be very important for the Florida Panthers. Max Gildon is going to be important for the Cats next year. John Ludwig is going to be a piece that the Florida Panthers are hoping they bring in case they don't go after Jacob Chikrin as well. And once again, after this season, after this next offseason, Mackenzie Weegar is going to be a UFA as well. So are they gonna pay him big bucks too? So that's one thing to consider for the Panthers when making this move as well. But it can work. It really, really can work for the Panthers if they if they're like, again, the Jack Eichel comparison with Vegas, if they can fit him in, the Florida Panthers can fit Jacob Chikrin in for sure. But we're going to get more into the Olympics. Even though the NHL isn't going to the Olympics, we're going to talk more about the women's tournament that started late into the night last night on February 2nd, going into this morning. But first, we want to talk to you all about Rock Auto. And with the ever increasing numbers of makes and models, it's now impossible for your local chain auto parts store to stock all the parts you need. Why endure often pointless or seemingly intimidating questioning and wait while the person behind the counter orders the parts on their computer, choosing the only brand their warehouse happens to carry? You have computers with access to rockauto.com at home and in your pocket. Save time and money when using Rock Auto. Why choose to spend 30, 50%, and even 100% more of the same parts from a chain store or car dealership? Rock Auto is a family business serving do-it-yourselfers for over 20 years. Rock Auto prices are reliably low for every customer. They have everything you could need: brake parts, tail lamps, motor oil, and even new carpet. Go explore their easy-to-use website today to find the solution to your parts needs. Go to rockauto.com and see all the parts available for your car or truck. Right, locked on in there. How did you hear us box, so they know we sent you. Amazing selection, reliably low prices, all the parts your car will ever need. rockauto.com. Continuing the conversation here on the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast. Once again, though the NHL is not going to the Olympics, there was Olympic hockey last night and into the morning of the women's tournament, and I got to see the first period of Canada versus Switzerland, and then unfortunately I fell asleep because that game started at 11:10 p.m. Eastern time last night, and with a day job, it's kind of hard to do it. But I will put this link in the show notes. NBC is providing reruns on demand on their website with a TV provider sign-in. So anyone who isn't able to catch these games live, you're able with a TV login to watch these games reruns over on your own time. So gonna watch more of those games whenever I do have the free time. But the Olympic hockey, a few score updates for the women's tournament. Canada manhandled Switzerland by a final score of 12-1. Had 7 different goal scorers in their victory over Switzerland, and the shots on goal differential, Canada had 70 while Switzerland had 15. And Sarah Fillier made her Olympic debut for Team Canada and got 3 points and a +3 rating with 10 shots on goal for Team Canada. What a way to bring in your Olympic debut for Team Canada. And the other game was Czechia versus China. The final score of 3-1 in favor of Czechia, and one that started at 3:30 a.m. Eastern time. This one, Japan defeats Finland by a final score of 3-1 in Beijing, and of course the most important one to me, and I do have Canadian listeners, so sorry, not sorry, but the USA Hockey, they played at 8:10 this morning, and I set my alarm literally like 10 minutes right before the game to wake up and just turn it on, have a little bit of coffee, and enjoy a little bit of hockey on a morning. Usually when I watch sports in the morning and drink coffee, it's usually when it's like an English Premier League game that NBC Sports Network, well, even though they're no longer around, when it was NBC Sports Network, that it was a nice thing to wake up to and just enjoy. And I kind of felt that sense of enjoyment just waking up, having a cup of coffee, and just enjoying some Olympic hockey for that. And that for the USA defeating Finland by a final score of 5-2. So did I say that Japan defeated Finland. I meant to say Japan defeated Sweden. Sorry, my apologies. But Team USA defeated Finland by a final score of 5-2. And at one point, the graphics showed that they were outshooting the opposition 40-8, dominating possession. Amanda Kessel had a brilliant move, froze the defense, and then creeps in to near the doorstep and just launches one for a goal. That was such a beautiful goal. Nobody picks up Amanda Kessel. Kendall Coyne Schofield gets 2 goals in this one, and Alex Carpenter gets 2 goals in this one for Team USA to bring them to a 5-2 victory. And the final shots on goal disparity was 51-10. 51-10 in favor of Team USA in their 5-2 victory over Team Finland. And as you can see, even though this is a baseball hat, I do have a USA hat on for that victory for Team USA. So very fun to have Olympic hockey back, even though it's not the NHL, and I want you guys to hopefully try to support the women's game, because they definitely need our support, especially with the PHF increasing their salary cap and wanting to give their players more of a livable wage, so that they don't have to have more jobs outside of that and they can focus more on their craft. So, like I said, NBC is providing that games on demand that are not live, because even myself, as a hockey podcaster and a host, the truth is I cannot see every single game live overnight, and I'm gonna be like Squidward when the Krusty Krab was open 24 hours. My bags would have bags, so that would be not fun going into my day job if that were to happen. But the next game for Canada would be Friday, February 4th against Finland at 11:10 p.m. USA's next game will be Saturday at 8:10 a.m. against the Russian Olympic Committee. So there'll be another early morning game for Team USA. Czechia plays Sweden at 3:40 a.m. on Saturday. Canada versus already said Canada versus Finland. So Denmark versus Japan will be also on Saturday at 3:40 Eastern Standard Time. So once again, even if you're not able to watch those live, you could still watch them on demand to see what you missed, because it's kind of hard with it being 13 hours ahead for the USA viewers, at least on the East Coast, especially. Though the 2026 Winter Olympics, if I'm not mistaken, will be in Italy. So there'll be more early morning games, not overnight games, when the 2026 Olympics do come around. So that's a good situation for all of us who look forward to viewing the Olympics in our time, which is more favorable than Beijing, China is. So hopefully the NHL will also be participating in the Winter Olympic Games come, and COVID it won't be a thing of the past. It's here to stay, but it won't be as harmful than it is what we know right now. So but that's something 4 years ahead in advance, so not something I'm gonna definitely worry about right now. But tomorrow on Locked On Panthers, we're going to talk more about the All-Star game coming up in Vegas, and Andrew Burnett and Jonathan Huberdeau heading to Vegas today. They're heading there today to participate in the game on Saturday at 3 p.m. and Friday it'll be the skills competition at 7:30. So we'll be chatting more about the skills competition. We'll be chatting more about the All-Star game, and of course, the Pro Bowl is actually as well in Vegas that same weekend on the Sunday. So Vegas is definitely the sports capital of the world this weekend, that's for sure. But in the meantime, if you like what you're hearing, please subscribe to the podcast so you'll be notified every single time the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast jumps into your podcast feed. Make sure to subscribe to Locked On NHL and the Crosscheck NHL show with Andrew Berkshire and Mary Clark will be covering all the regular season activities around the National Hockey League. Thank you for making the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast your first listen today. And for your second listen of the day, make sure to listen to today's episode of Locked On Bets, your one-stop shop for all things betting. Locked On Bets, hosted by Boy Q and handicapping expert Lee Sterling. It's free and available on all platforms, so subscribe to Locked On Bets on the Odyssey app or wherever you get podcasts. So I'm Armando, signing off. And you've been listening to the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. We're your team every day.